Hey guys, Civilord here, back in with another action figure review, and because I love torturing myself, today we're going to be taking a look at the Transformers, I believe it was called Premium Edition back in the day, but don't quote me on that. Either way, we're taking a look at the Last Night Deluxe Class Berserker, or, if you know, you know, Dark of the Moon Deluxe Class Crankcase, just not Studio Series. However, this mold would go on to see life in the Studio Series as the other two Dreads, Crowbar and Hatchet, as well as a weird Crowbar repaint that they called Crankcase, but we all know ain't movie accurate. That said, despite the fact that this guy is a bit of a mess, he is brought to us by the fine folks over at Hasbro, who will remain fine folks because while he is a mess, that's mostly in vehicle mode. His vehicle mode has a very difficult time staying together. Robot mode, not so much. He does have these arm panels that have a tendency to fall off from time to time, but for the most part, he does stay together okay, I guess. Now, getting right into the meat and taters of this review and take a look-see at all Berserker has to offer in terms of accessories. He's got these two clubs here, kind of pointy too, so be careful with that. But these would also be reused for this guy right here, the Deluxe Class Crowbar, who has crazy dreadlocks that make the members of the band Korn jealous. And then we of course have the dog of the group, Deluxe Class Hatchet, who can really only be posed on all fours. You can stand him upright, but it don't look right. Move Crowbar in just a smidge. There you go. And here we have what I like to call the hashtag not Insecticons. I mean, there's three of them. They kind of look like bugs. I think it's a good fit. But in the movie, they were called the Dreads. However, I think these were the Michael Bay versions of the Insecticons. But that's just me. So getting Captain Bad Hair Day out of here, along with Hatchet, who does have a tail. I just leave it off because he takes up less room that way. Why don't we take a closer look at Berserker here? He looks pretty freaking cool, I'm not gonna lie. I think he looks really cool. It's just some of these panels like to pop off. Thankfully, this panel that would form like the ass end of the, I think it's a Chevy Suburban alt mode, is compressed in here, so you don't gotta worry about that as much. But these arm panels will occasionally pop off and get a little frustrating after a while. As far as articulation goes, his head, it's in a ball joint. It'll look side to side. Kinda, sorta. And just look at that head. It looks just like Crankcase. Especially like the old Dark of the Moon Deluxe Class. And he even has like the little pinchers on his shoulders. So yeah, definitely Crankcase vibes with this one. His shoulders move in and out. Forward and back. Kind of loose on the in and out. He has a bicep swivel? He does. He does have a bicep swivel. Single jointed elbow. Now he does actually have the appropriate hinge for holding weapons, but you're going to pop this panel off doing that, so I would not recommend that. His hips will kick out a little bit, back down. You can kick forward and back. He does have a thigh cut, but you mostly get turn out of the wheel on his butt kiss there. Let's pop this up a little more. His butt panel there. No, not really. Alright. I see how you want to be. He does have a hinge in the knee, as well as a hinge in the foot, which is mostly to get into the degenerate pose, or digitigrade, whatever you want to call it. He does have a little heel spur there. So, not a bad little figure for the time. but I think this guy could use a Studio Series reissue. Looks like they did with Crowbar, I guess. Even though there wasn't anything inherently wrong with the Crowbar figure, I do think this guy would benefit from a reissue that is a little less loose. It stays together a little better. I think the accuracy is there. I don't think they need to change much in terms of that, but I really think a reissue is what this guy needs. He's also kind of old at this point, and since they are doing like Barricade, we got Mohawk as a it's not a scout class, is it core class? Earlier this year, late last year, I think Berserker would benefit from some kind of reissue. But that's just move that little doohickey out so it doesn't look so chillax. Because this guy is not. He's a pretty aggressive character. He was not really in the thick of it. He was captured, but I could tell he was pissed. So, before we wrap this up here, let's bring in our two regulars, the Mythic Legion's Brother Mandibula, right there, and the infamous Unlimited Spawn, who, as usual, towers over everyone. So, with that being said, it's time now that we wrap things up with some final thoughts. Overall, and aside from some loose bits falling off this guy when transforming him into his vehicle mode, really the only gripes I have with good old Berserker and or Crankcase, whichever you prefer, here are really the lack of an ankle rocker, because these guys would be a lot easier to pose if they had an ankle rocker. Now I say these guys because the other dreads pretty much the same as this guy, despite the fact that they do have their differences. However, I think if you're going to have any leg articulation, no matter what the scale of the figure is, ankle rocker is key, because what's the point of moving the leg out if you can't tilt the foot in to compensate for it? That said, I think it is time now that we attempt to get this guy transformed so we can take a closer look at his vehicle mode. And as promised, here we have good old Berserker, aka Crankcase, whichever you prefer, in his, I believe it's a Chevy Suburban alt mode. Now, as I mentioned before, this mold would go on to see new life as both Crowbar here and Hatchet, who I think of the three, Hatchet probably goes together the best. I say that because he has no panels kind of sticking out. This Berserker figure is definitely not great, to say the very least, to get into this alt mode. These other two, significantly better. Less stuff pops off, and they're just far more enjoyable. So, fingers crossed we see a reissue of Berserker in the Studio Series, or, you know, like I said, he is basically Crankcase. The Crankcase we got in Studio Series is not movie accurate at all. He's just a Crowbar repaint, which, if you've seen the movie, it's not what he looks like. But here he is with the other two dreads, all in their Chevy Suburban alt modes. And I think they look cool together. I think they could totally be cruising down the streets looking for trouble, just like this. But, you know, I'm a robot mode guy all day, every day, 7 days a week. So, getting these two out of here. That's going to do it for my looks at the Deluxe class Berserker here. So, with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed this review, and until next time, I'll catch you guys later.